So, imagine this scenario for a second. You're home alone.
Okay.
You're feeling kind of unwell. Maybe you're confined to your bed for the evening. And the house is just completely suffocatingly silent.
Right. That classic kind of creepy late night quiet.
Exactly. So you pick up your phone to call a loved one. You aren't even looking for like a deep conversation, just a bit of comfort.
Yeah, a familiar voice in the quiet, just to kind of anchor you.
Right. But instead of the usual ringtone or, instead of dial tone, the line just clicks.
Oh, wow.
And suddenly you find yourself dropped right into the middle of a conversation between two total strangers. You are essentially this invisible eavesdropper.
That is deeply unsettling right off the bat.
Right. And as you lie there, just listening to the static hum of the connection, your mild curiosity freezes into absolute terror.
Because it's not just small talk.
No, because these two cold, dispassionate voices aren't just chatting about the weather, they are finalizing the meticulous mechanical details of a brutal murder.
Good Lord.
And, well, the absolute worst part, as they describe the target, the location, the timing, you slowly realize the victim they are talking about might actually be you.
I mean, that is just the ultimate disruption of sanctuary, isn't it?
It really is.
We have this deeply ingrained, almost binary expectation of safety when it comes to our own homes. You lock the door, and you are safe. You are inside, the danger is outside.
Yeah, the classic fortress mentality.
Exactly. But in this scenario, the danger doesn't, break a window. It doesn't pick a lock. It slips right through the wires of a device you implicitly trust.
A device you literally hold right up to your ear.
Yeah, it's an incredibly intimate invasion.
And that terrifying premise is exactly what we are unpacking today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a journey back to 1943 to explore a true masterpiece of audio terror.
I am so excited for this one.
Me too. It's a radio play called Sorry, Wrong Number. It was written by Lucille Fletcher, and it stars the absolutely legendary Agnes Moorehead.
Such an incredible performance.
Oh, unmatched. It originally aired on Columbia's Suspense program, which was introduced by the Man in Black.
Right, setting that perfect atmospheric mood.
Exactly. So our mission today isn't just to recap a scary story. We are going to thoroughly dissect how this essentially one-woman audio drama takes a modern convenience, well, the telephone, and turns it into an instrument of pure dread.
We're really exploring the psychological architecture of panic here, and isolation.
Helplessness, all of it. So maybe check your locks, turn down the lights just a little bit.
Yeah.
Because we are stepping into the incredibly claustrophobic world of Mrs. Stevenson.
And, to really understand how this world operates, we have to start with the actual technology that traps her.
Yes, let's set the scene.
So the setup introduces us to Mrs. Stevenson. She's an invalid who is home alone, and she is deeply, deeply frustrated.
Yeah, she is not having a good night.
No. She's been trying to reach her husband, Albert, at his office for 3/4 of an hour, but the line is just constantly busy. So she does what anyone in the 1940s would do in that situation. She gets the operator to try the line for her.
Okay, and I want to pause here really quick because it's so easy for us today, with smartphones, to just think, oh, her call dropped, or there was a digital glitch.
Yeah, we think in terms of cell towers and Wi-Fi.
Exactly. But the telephone system back then wasn't a digital network bouncing signals off satellites. It was a very physical, mechanical reality.
Oh, absolutely.
So how exactly did this system work, and how does that lead to this specific nightmare scenario?
Well, that physical reality is the crucial foundation of the entire play. Before direct dialing was a universal thing, you relied entirely on a human operator to physically connect your line.
Right. There's always a person in the middle.
Exactly. Picture this massive wall, right?
Yeah.
A switchboard covered in hundreds of tiny little jacks. An operator, usually a young woman, would sit in front of this board wearing a headset.
Just managing all these physical cables.
Yeah. When you pick up your phone, a little light would flash on her board. She would literally take a physical copper wire with a metal plug on the end and push it into the jack corresponding to your specific line.
Okay.
And then she'd ask for the number you wanted. In Mrs. Stevenson's case, the script gives us Murray Hill 7-00093.
So it's a classic old New York exchange.
Right. And then the operator would take the other end of that wire and physically plug it into the destination jack to complete the circuit. It was a tangible, physical connection between 2 points.
So it inherently involved a human middleman. Like, every single call was facilitated by a pair of human hands moving wires around a board.
Exactly. And because it was a human system, it was totally prone to human error.
Naturally.
When the operator tries to connect Mrs. Stevenson to her husband's busy office line, she makes a mistake. She accidentally plugs the cord into the wrong jack, or maybe she grazes another connection. The physical wires literally get crossed. And that manual error drops Mrs. Stevenson directly into a live connection with two men who are finalizing a murder plot scheduled for 11:15 p.m. that very night.
Which is just such a brilliant way to weaponize a mundane piece of technology.
It really is.
But I have to say, listening to this, I actually struggled to see how the murder plot itself is the scariest part of the scene.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, the two men, there's one named George and then an unnamed man who's calling from a phone booth. They don't sound like, cackling theatrical villains.
Right.
They sound incredibly boring, like almost aggressively normal.
Yes. You're picking up on exactly what Lucille Fletcher intended there.
Oh.
The horror lies in their bureaucratic banality.
Yeah, they sound like contractors discussing a plumbing job or like electricians going over a schematic.
Exactly. Let's look at the specific details the writer feeds us during this call. The unnamed man tells George the coast is clear. He lays out this precise, totally mechanical timeline. He says at 11:00 p.m., the private patrolman on the street always goes around the corner to a bar on 2nd Avenue for a beer.
Just a completely routine observation.
Yes. And then at 11:15 p.m., a train crosses the nearby bridge. And they note, very clinically, mind you, that the train will make enough noise to muffle any screams if the woman's window happens to be open.
It's so methodical, it's just logistics to them.
Pure logistics.
The client wants it to look like a simple robbery, so George is instructed to remove the rings and bracelets from the bureau drawer.
Right.
And then comes this line that just completely chilled me. The boss says, "Make it quick, as little blood as possible. Our client does not wish to make her suffer long."
Ooh, yeah.
And George just casually confirms that a knife will be okay. It's so disturbing.
It's the juxtaposition, right? The phrase, as little blood as possible, right next to the weapon being a knife. It reveals a horrifying level of professional detachment.
Yes, detachment is the perfect word.
They are reducing a human life to a set of physical variables, time, noise, and mess. And Mrs. Stevenson hears every single word of this until the connection just suddenly breaks, leaving her alone in the quiet again.
But see, this is where I want to push back on what we typically consider the source of the terror here.
Okay, I'm listening.
Because, yes, obviously, overhearing a murder plot is scary. But the minute she gets cut off, she immediately tries to get the operator to trace the call.
Right. She goes right into action mode.
Right. And the wall she hits, to me, that is so much scarier than the men with the knife.
Oh, that's an interesting take.
Yeah, I mean, is the real terror in this story actually the killers, or is it the absolute crushing indifference of the system she turns to for help?
That is a phenomenal observation. Yeah. And honestly, it's the thematic engine of the entire play. The horror of bureaucracy.
It's infuriating.
When Mrs. Stevenson frantically contacts the operator and then eventually escalates to the chief operator, she isn't met with empathy or urgency at all.
Not even a little bit.
She is met with the rigid, unyielding machinery of protocol.
The chief operator literally asks her why she wants the call traced.
Like it's an unreasonable request.
Yes. Mrs. Stevenson is screaming that some poor, innocent woman is going to be murdered at 11:15, and the chief operator just calmly, almost robotically asks for her name and her telephone number, Plaza 4-2295. It feels like she's speaking to a blank wall.
And here is where we really need to explain why the system fails her, structurally speaking.
Okay, let's get into it.
The chief operator explains that tracing a call depends entirely on whether it's a live call.
Right, because of the physical wires.
Exactly. Remember how we described the switchboard? If the parties are still connected, the operator can physically trace that patch cord back to its origin points on the board.
Just follow the string, basically.
Yeah. But if the callers have hung up, if those physical plugs have been pulled from the jacks, the circuit is broken. The physical trail literally ceases to exist.
Wow. So the telephone company is actually technologically powerless.
They are, which makes perfect sense logically, right?
Sure, logically. But to a panicked person, it's completely maddening.
Oh, totally. And then comes the real bureaucratic trap. Because Mrs. Stevenson hasn't reported this to the police yet, the chief operator informs her that she is asking for this trace purely as a private individual.
Oh, the terminology.
Right. And as a private individual, the phone company cannot undertake this kind of investigation. She has to go through the proper channels. She has to call the police.
It's just a perfect critique of how bureaucratic categorization strips people of their humanity in moments of crisis.
Absolutely.
She isn't a terrified woman trying to save a life. She's an unauthorized private individual making an irregular request.
Just a problem to be deflected.
Yeah. The very technology she relies on to connect her to the world has just become this labyrinth she cannot navigate.
Exactly. But, if we are going to talk about navigating this labyrinth, this brings us to a crucial and honestly somewhat uncomfortable element of the story.
Okay.
Mrs. Stevenson's failure to get help isn't entirely the system's fault.
No, she is not making it easy for anyone to want to help her.
Not at all.
I have to admit, as I was reading through the script, I almost stopped caring about the murder plot for a second because she is so abrasive.
She is tough to listen to sometimes.
She really is. Does the writer make a mistake by making her protagonist so unlikable? Like, it feels risky.
It feels counterintuitive at first, for sure. You'd think the writer would want us to deeply, immediately sympathize with the victim.
Right, to root for her.
But making her unlikable isn't a mistake. It's the entire point of her character study. The script doesn't give us a saintly, helpless victim. It gives us a portrait of the complicity of isolation.
Oh, that's good. Okay, tell me more.
Well, look at how she treats people. She is brutal to these operators. When the first operator can't magically reconnect the broken circuit, Mrs. Stevenson snaps, "Why are you so stupid?"
She actually calls the woman an idiot.
Yes. She demands that the operator intentionally make the same careless mistake again to reconnect the crossed wires.
Which is technically impossible once the plugs are pulled.
Exactly. And when the operator calmly explains she can't do that, Mrs. Stevenson threatens to report her for unpardonable rudeness and insolence.
It's just massive entitlement. Let's look at the clues the script drops about her life, too.
Yeah, they paint a very specific picture.
She casually mentions she lives at 53 North Sutton Place, which is a very affluent address.
Very expensive.
She complains about her maid, Eloise, who she calls her 200-pound maid, claiming she's too lazy to bring up her breakfast tray and who happens to have the night off.
Right, she's very dismissive of the help.
And she constantly references her husband, Albert, who she says adores her and waits on her hand and foot. She's been an invalid, confined to her bed for 12 years.
Okay, so her privilege is basically like a noise-canceling headset.
I love that analogy.
It has kept all the unpleasantness, all the friction of the real world out for 12 years. She lives in this perfectly insulated bubble where her every whim is just catered to immediately. But now that there's a metaphorical fire in the house, she can't hear the alarm. And worse, she doesn't know how to talk to the people who can actually put it out.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy. And there is a profound structural irony here, too. Because of her illness and her wealth, she is entirely dependent on working-class people to survive.
Oh, 100%.
She relies on maids to feed her, operators to connect her, police to protect her, nurses to soothe her. Yet she treats every single one of them with absolute contempt.
It's so true. She views them not as human beings, but just as faulty extensions of the machinery that is supposed to serve her.
Exactly. She is physically isolated by her chronic illness, yes. But she is morally and socially isolated by her own profound entitlement.
You really see this dynamic explode when she finally takes the operator's advice and calls the police.
Oh, the conversation with Sergeant Martin.
Yes. She gets connected to Sergeant Martin at Precinct 43, and he is the exact opposite of her in every way.
He really is a brilliant foil to Mrs. Stevenson, where she is pure, unfiltered hysteria. He is the calm, rational, almost plotting voice of the state.
He's just doing the paperwork, basically.
Yeah. He listens to her story. He diligently takes down her name, her address, again, 53 North Sutton Place, and all the details of the plot she overheard. But then he makes the fatal mistake of applying logic to her panic.
Which is the last thing she wants to hear.
Right. She is demanding that they do a complete search of the city, that they send out radio cars to her neighborhood immediately.
And Sergeant Martin just gently, systematically dismantles her entire argument.
It's almost sad to listen to.
She points out the clues: a house near a bridge, a patrolman on 2nd Avenue. And he points out, perfectly reasonably, that 2nd Avenue is a very, very long street.
Yeah, and he notes that New York City has countless bridges. The Brooklyn Bridge, Staten Island, Queens, the Bronx.
Exactly. He even suggests that because the telephone system is so vast, she could have overheard a long-distance call.
Oh, right. The murder might not even be happening in New York.
It could be in a different state entirely.
He tells her that murders are plotted in the city every day and they do their best to prevent them. But a clue this vague is essentially useless to a police force.
It's just not actionable intelligence.
Right. He promises they will take care of it and look into it later, but he dismisses her immediate demand for action because, frankly, he has concrete matters on his desk that require his attention right now.
And she responds, predictably, by completely exploding at him and slamming the phone down.
Which she almost immediately regrets.
Because she realizes she just alienated the one institution actually designed to save her.
Exactly. But this is the pivot point in the script. This is where the pacing of the story completely shifts gears and the tension really accelerates.
You can feel the energy change.
Up until now, she's been looking outward, angry at the operators, angry at the police. But as the clock ticks closer to 11:11 Tivellum, her frustration begins to curdle into a very personal, creeping realization.
And that ticking clock structure is what elevates this from a simple character piece into just a masterclass in thriller pacing.
It's so effective.
We are moving in real time. And the tension isn't built through, action sequences or jump scares. It is built entirely through the realization of context.
Yes. Context is everything here.
Sergeant Martin dismissed her plea because there are many second avenues and many bridges. But as Mrs. Stevenson sits alone in her silent bedroom, her mind starts connecting the dots.
And the brilliant part is the writer makes sure you, the listener, are putting the puzzle pieces together right alongside her.
Precisely. Let's look at the facts she herself provided. She lives at 53 North Sutton Place. That address is right near the Queensboro Bridge.
Yeah.
Her specific street has a private patrolman. She has a maid who is off for the night. She is completely, utterly alone.
She actually told Sergeant Martin all of this. She literally fed the police her own physical description without realizing she was describing herself.
It's a terrifying epiphany.
So if her wealth and her husband can't protect her, the only thing left is the very thing that started this nightmare, the phone itself.
Right?
But now, the phone turns on her.
Yes. We enter the psychological warfare of the ringing phone. It rings, she frantically picks it up, she says hello, and there is just dead air.
No one.
There. And this doesn't just happen once. It happens repeatedly, every few seconds. She calls the operator in an absolute frenzy, demanding to know who is doing it and demanding they trace it.
And once again, explain how the technology fails her here. Why can't they just see who is calling her? Like caller ID.
Because the system is in transition. The operator explains that while Mrs. Stevenson's outgoing calls might still be handled by a manual operator, the incoming dial system is largely automatic.
Okay, so it's mechanical.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If someone is dialing her number and choosing not to speak, there is no physical human operator monitoring that specific connection to trace back. The machine is completely blind to her suffering.
That's chilling.
There is no way to check where it's coming from unless the person making the call complains.
It's the anonymity of the machine. But she figures out the logic behind it, though.
Well, she does.
She realizes the killers are testing the line. They are calling to make sure she is home. And by picking up the receiver, she is actively confirming to her murderers that she is right where they want her.
A terrible catch-22.
So she makes a decision. She resolves not to answer. And the ringing stops.
It's 5 minutes to 11.
And in that awful silence, she realizes why they stopped ringing.
They heard her voice.
Exactly. They know she's there. They don't need to test the line anymore.
The illusion of control is systematically dismantled piece by piece. Every avenue of escape she tries is blocked by bureaucracy, by technology, or by her own prior actions.
It's just a closing mat.
And then comes the final, devastating blow to her hope, the ultimate betrayal.
Her husband, Albert, she has been trying to reach his office all night, desperate for him to come home and protect her.
Right.
The phone rings again, and she almost doesn't answer it, but she does. And this time, it's not dead air. It's a Western Union operator with a telegram.
Which is a masterstroke of narrative efficiency.
It really is.
The telegram is from Albert. It says he tried to call her, but the line was busy. He states he is leaving for Boston at 11:00 p.m. tonight on urgent business and won't be back until tomorrow afternoon.
Convenient.
And he signs off with the phrase, "Keep happy. Love, Albert."
Keep happy. It's such a hollow, chilling sign-off when you understand the context of what's actually happening.
Totally.
Because the listener, along with Mrs. Stevenson, suddenly realizes the terrible truth about Albert's role in all of this.
Let's review the parameters of the murder plot from the beginning.
Let's do it.
Who was the mysterious client the killers were taking orders from? The client who specifically wanted it to look like a simple robbery?
Right.
The client who knew exactly where her jewelry was kept in the bureau drawer? The client who specifically requested they use a knife so there would be as little blood as possible and so she wouldn't suffer long.
It's Albert. He arranged for his own invalid wife to be murdered, and he meticulously timed his urgent business trip to Boston to give himself an airtight alibi.
So calculated.
He made sure he was on a train hundreds of miles away right as the killers walked through his front door.
Her absolute helplessness peaks in this moment. Stripped of her husband's protection, she tries one last desperate transactional measure.
What does she do?
She relies on one thing she still thinks gives her power, her money. She calls information to get the number for Henchley Hospital, a private exclusive hospital where she was previously a patient.
Okay.
She gets the nurse's registry on the line and demands they send over a trained nurse immediately. Not for medical care, but just for companionship, because she is nervous and alone.
And she assumes her wealth will cut through any red tape. She literally says she expects to pay a premium.
She thinks money solves everything.
But even money can't save her now. The registry flatly refuses. The nurse on duty explains that due to severe wartime shortages, which, roots this firmly in its 1943 context, they only send out nurses on cases explicitly recommended by a physician.
Mrs. Stevenson argues. She pleads. She tries to throw her status around, but the nurse holds firm. The rules are the rules.
The system wins again.
It is a masterful culmination of the play's themes. The systems she has trusted her entire life. The police, the medical establishment, the telecommunications network, and finally, the deeply personal institution of her own marriage, all systematically fail her.
So the complete collapse.
The illusion that her wealth and status provide an impenetrable shield is entirely shattered. She is left with nothing but the telephone.
And as she hangs up at the nurse's registry, she checks the time. Her clock had stopped. She thought she had more time to figure this out.
Oh, that is so stressful.
She frantically asks the operator for the correct time. The operator tells her it is 11:15 p.m., the exact time the train is scheduled to cross the bridge.
And this brings us to the climax. And to fully appreciate this climax, we have to talk about the physical constraints of audio storytelling and why it is so uniquely terrifying.
Right, because in a visual medium like a film or a television show, when it hits 11:15 p.m., the camera would usually cut away.
Yeah, exactly.
We would see the killers approaching the house. We'd see a shadow stretching across the wall or, a hand turning a doorknob. The visual gives you a sense of geography and distance.
But by restricting us purely to audio, the writer, Lucille Fletcher, and the actress, Agnes Moorehead, confine us entirely to the bed right next to Mrs. Stevenson.
We're trapped in that room with her.
We don't get the luxury of seeing the killer a block away. We only know what she knows, exactly when she knows it. In audio drama, confinement equals power.
That's a great point.
And the Foley art, the sound effects, they do all the heavy lifting of the visual.
Because at exactly 11 p.m., she hears it. A distinct click on the phone line.
It's the physical sound of the extension telephone downstairs in the kitchen being lifted off its hook. Someone is in the house. The sanctuary has been breached.
We hear that click exactly as she hears it, and her reaction is to immediately begin frantically, breathlessly whispering to the operator.
She's terrified.
She doesn't dare speak loudly because she knows the killer is listening on the extension downstairs. She is begging the operator to connect her to the police, but the connection is poor.
The operator can't hear her whispers. Speak up, please, the operator says. The system is failing her one final time because it requires a level of vocal projection she can no longer afford to give.
And then the horrifying auditory details take over. We hear the sound of the extension phone downstairs being put back down, the click.
He's done listening.
He knows she's up there. He is moving.
Yeah.
We hear the heavy, deliberate footsteps coming up the stairs. And Agnes Moorehead's vocal performance here, it is just staggering.
It really is widely considered one of the greatest pieces of vocal acting ever recorded.
I believe it.
She has to carry the entire emotional weight of this realization purely through the architecture of her voice. Think about the journey her voice has taken over the last half hour.
It's a huge arc.
She started with this annoyed, aristocratic entitlement. Then it shifted to anxiety, then to frantic desperation, and finally, as she hears those footsteps outside her door, it devolves into absolute primal, throat-tearing terror.
She is screaming for the police department. She is screaming into the phone, and the police do finally answer. Sergeant Martin picks up the line.
But Mrs. Stevenson can no longer speak to him. The 11:15 train is roaring over the Queensboro Bridge outside her window, the sound completely masking her final screams and the sounds of the struggle.
Just exactly as the killers meticulously planned back at the beginning of the play.
Exactly.
And then, the final chilling moment that just leaves you breathless, the train noise fades, the struggle is over, Sergeant Martin is still on the line saying, hello, hello.
And the killer picks up the receiver of Mrs. Stevenson's bedside phone.
The killer speaks directly into the phone to the police, and he calmly says, I'm sorry, must have got the wrong number. Don't worry, everything's okay. And he hangs up. Click. The line goes dead.
It is a devastating ending. The very phrase that started her entire nightmare, wrong number, is used by her murderer to dismiss her existence entirely and close the loop. It just washes over you.
It forces the listener to sit in the silence that follows, processing the absolute finality of it.
Yeah, you just need a minute after that.
Okay, well, let's pull ourselves out of that tense 1943 bedroom and bring the conversation back to the studio to really look at what this all means for us today.
Good idea.
The brilliance of Lucille Fletcher's script isn't just that it's a scary story about a home invasion. It is a deeply resonant parable of modern isolation.
Exactly. The fundamental truth of the narrative transcends the era of manual switchboards. We build these massive, complex machines to connect us.
Right. Telephone networks, radio towers.
And today, global, instantaneous internet connections. We rely on them completely. But the core vulnerability remains. A wire can be cut. A call can be dropped.
Yeah.
And the systems we rely on, the bureaucracies, the protocols, the automated responses, can be profoundly, lethally apathetic to our individual suffering.
Which brings me to you listening to this deep dive right now. I want you to think about your own modern lifelines. Look at the smartphone sitting next to you.
Think about the Wi-Fi router blinking quietly in your living room.
Right. Do these technologies actually make us safer? Or do they just provide the illusion of safety, a kind of digital pacifier, while simultaneously keeping us physically disconnected from the neighbors right next door?
It raises a vital question about the nature of community and reliance. Mrs. Stevenson had the entire sprawling city of New York accessible at the end of a copper wire, but she didn't know a single human being she could actually call for help in a crisis.
Not a single one.
She had alienated her domestic staff, she relied completely on a husband who ultimately betrayed her, and she treated the public servants who formed her safety net with utter disdain.
It's a profound, chilling reflection to end on. The true tragedy of Mrs. Stevenson wasn't just that she was physically weak or that she was the victim of a greedy, murderous husband.
No, it was much deeper than that.
It was that she lived a life entirely mediated by wires, by protocols, and by transactional demands. She was surrounded by millions of people in one of the biggest cities in the world, yet she was completely, fundamentally alone.
She had 1,000 connections at her fingertips.
And absolutely no one who would come.
A powerful reminder that our humanity and our safety cannot be entirely outsourced to a machine.
Well said. We're going to leave you to mull that over. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of Sorry, Wrong Number. Until next time, we leave you with the lingering image of a dark room, a silent house, and the quiet, heavy dread of a dead phone line. Stay safe out there.